Do make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. When my husband died, his family circled me like vultures. They wanted everything: his money, his name, his legacy. At the reading of the will, they smirked as the lawyer handed me a single envelope. My inheritance. The decaying family mansion no one had lived in for decades. They laughed in my face, whispering that I'd soon be homeless, begging for scraps. But I smiled politely, folded my grief into silence, and took the keys. They had no idea. What they thought was a curse would become the stage of their undoing. Because within those broken walls, I uncovered a secret that would change everything, a secret worth $150 million. And I swore, before God and the ghosts in that house, that every last one of them would pay. The first night, I couldn't sleep. The mansion creaked and moaned like it was alive. Dust clung to the air, cobwebs strung across every corner like warning signs. The wallpaper peeled in long strips, and rain leaked through the broken windows. It felt less like a home and more like a mausoleum. But then, as I dragged an old trunk across the study, the floor groaned differently. Hollow. I pressed my ear to the ground. A trapdoor. And beneath it, darkness. I didn't open it that night. I told myself I was too tired, but the truth was, fear crawled inside me like a second skin. I should have left it shut. The following day, I unpacked the envelope my husband had left me. Inside wasn't just the deed, there was a letter. His handwriting, hurried, uneven. If you're reading this, it means they came for me faster than I thought. Don't trust anyone. What you seek is beneath the house. Guard it with your life. I clutched the paper like it was his hand reaching back to me from the grave. That night, I placed it under my pillow before sleeping. When I woke, the pillow was empty. The letter was gone. And down the hallway, the study door, the one above the trapdoor, stood wide open. The nights grew heavier. Each time I closed my eyes, I heard it, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, dragging across the wooden floors. I'd get up, candle shaking in my hand, only to find no one. But things began to move. Chairs shifted when my back was turned. Windows locked themselves. And once, when I looked into the cracked hallway mirror, I swore I saw another woman's face staring back, pale, furious. My children called on the telephone, worried I was losing my mind. Maybe I was. But then I found the trapdoor open, and muddy footprints leading into it. The air below was damp, suffocating. I crawled down with nothing but a lantern, the flame flickering against stone walls. And then I saw it. A vault. Not new, old, older than the house itself, with carvings etched into the metal. My husband's family crest. The lock was broken, hanging loose as if someone had forced it before me. Inside, neatly stacked and wrapped in decaying fabric, were ledgers, contracts, and gold bars. The air left my lungs. My husband hadn't been wealthy by inheritance alone. He had been guarding a fortune buried beneath their noses. I reached for one of the bars, when a voice behind me hissed, "Put it down." I turned. And there stood my husband's brother. The one who laughed the loudest at the will. His smile was cruel. "You weren't supposed to find it," he said. "But don't worry. That letter already told me everything." So it was him. The thief. The shadow in my halls. I swallowed my fear and forced my voice steady. "Then you also know what happens when you touch what isn't yours." He laughed, until I smashed the lantern at his feet, fire bursting against the damp floor, smoke choking the tunnel. He stumbled, coughing. I ran. By morning, I wasn't the same trembling widow who'd first stepped into the mansion. I had gathered the ledgers, the proof, and the gold that I could carry. And when I walked into the lawyer's office that afternoon, every one of my in-laws was there, waiting to sneer. I laid the evidence on the table, contracts of hidden investments, offshore accounts, and the deed to the vault that legally belonged to me through my husband. The lawyer adjusted his glasses, eyes wide. Mrs. _____, this totals at least $150 million. Silence swallowed the room. The same mouths that had laughed at me days before now hung open, pale and speechless. I looked each of them in the eye, slow and deliberate, before whispering, "Laugh now." Months later, the mansion no longer breathed like a grave. Windows gleamed, chandeliers glittered, the gardens bloomed again. I had turned ruin into power. And whenever my in-laws passed by the gates, watching me sip wine on the balcony, they bowed their heads in shame. They thought they'd buried me. Instead, I'd risen, with $150 million to my name and a vow etched into stone. No one would ever laugh at me again.